morning, and thank you for joining our Quick Bite Outsourcing Case Design and Your Bottom Line. My name is Madeline Holzer. I'm the Education Event Specialist here at Zahn, and I'm happy to present Milos Markovic, Director of CAD/CAM from Aurora DTC. We will have time at the end of our Quick Bite for Q&A, so please type your questions in the chat and we'll be happy to address them at the end. Welcome, Milos.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today. Thank you, Zahn, for giving me a chance to speak. This is sort of like a follow-up to the webinar that we did on outsourcing designs and manufacturing and the return on investment. So we kind of wanted to create a little bit more of a focused approach and give you a few things to consider whether or not outsourcing is a good option for you as a dental lab owner, and what sort of things you need to consider when choosing, whether something is something costly, is it going to make sense for you, and what path you should take for the success of your lab. So real quick, my name is Milos Markovic. I am a certified dental technician. I live in New York. I'm a CAD/CAM director and the director of CAD/CAM and Implantology at Aurora Digital Technology Center, which some of you are familiar with. That's a former CMC, Custom Milling Center. So we're now located in New York. And I worked with Nobel Biocare, some of the larger labs in the clinical environment as well. So I try to bring some of that experience into our milling center so that we can really try to nail what the lab owner of today needs. And we work daily on trying to solve their problems, especially when it comes to manufacturing and design, and making sure that the small lab, the middle-sized lab, basically any lab stays in business and stays relevant. And this is basically where all this information comes in. And I would like to try to list a few things, the common concerns that we hear from labs, and the solutions that we kind of give them, and what things they should consider when it comes to choosing outsourcing. So we have two types of outsourcing, right? We have outsourcing designs, and manufacturing. Now, the important thing to consider today is that today's labs have actually changed a little bit. So basically in today's labs, you have your design department and you have your manufacturing department. Very different from back in the day when you had your crown and bridge department and removables department, and you had your orthodontic department, plaster department. So that's actually kind of changed. So everything kind of got streamlined into just your team of designers who are designing your crown and bridge restorations, your dentures, your ortho, your 3D models on one side, and on the other end you have your CNC milling or 3D printing that you utilize for all the manufacturing. So it's created a very interesting workflow. It's a little bit more streamlined, but it does not lack any of the challenges that you would be facing as a lab owner. So knowing about what some of these things cost, what you need to consider into bringing all of this together into a functional workflow is important. So basically, to break down your return on investment, is you have to consider your labor. You have to consider what is it that you're currently offering that your dentists consume, but also what are things that you're not offering that your dentist might be interested in. So considering your current product offerings and expanding them. And then you have your true costs of in-house production. And we're going to break down how much does it cost, for instance, to make a single zirconia crown, a true cost in-house, and all these little things that we break down so that you can use to kind of put in your own numbers. So when it comes to labor and when it comes to outsourcing, it can help you with a lot of labor challenges. So the first one is you have a limited number of available local technicians. This has been the Achilles heel of our industry for as long as I've been in it. It's very challenging to find skilled technicians. It's very challenging to find local technicians, and it's the most challenging to find local skilled technicians. So you kind of putting yourself in a position when you as a lab want to grow and you have maybe the resources to do so, but you just don't have access to talent. So outsourcing can become a powerful tool for you and give you the ability to continue growing, continue working, and have an off-site team that works for you. So most design centers basically are so tightly intertwined with the lab that it's virtually like having an offsite design team that's maybe in another room or across the street that works for you. They could be thousands of miles away, but with today's technology, those barriers are kind of disappearing. So, and then of course, on-demand labor to scale demand, right? So as your business grows, you don't have to worry about how am I going to find the 2 or 3 extra technicians I need to service this new account that I have now, or how am I going to scale down or maybe handle all these people that I currently have at salaries as employees if my business plummets and it goes down. So having outsourcing can give you that flexibility, and it's a really powerful tool to kind of jump in between into these little crevices of business challenges to kind of help you out and kind of bring everything together so that your workflow doesn't change, you don't suffer any big fluctuations and losses. So when it comes to return on investment, we like to consider several things. What are the main benefits? So it gives you new opportunities, right? So reduces operational risk, controlled use of resources, and real estate and plant costs. So the first one, which is new opportunities. As your work grows, as your work scales, as new projects come in, maybe it is a new product that you're trying to offer to the dentist that you haven't manufactured before, working with an outsourcing manufacturing or design center to give you that product instantly so you can test it out in the field, see how your dentists like it, is a great tool. Then reducing operational risk, right? So your employee might quit, they might leave unexpectedly for different reasons. Your machines could break down, you could have a natural disaster, all these things that could really disrupt a workflow, especially of a smaller lab, because smaller labs don't have the luxury to have 5 designers on staff. Maybe they have 1 or 2. And so if you have such a limited number of employees, one of them not being around is already creating a huge, putting a huge strain on your business. Then we have only pay for the services that you consume. That's the controlled use of the resources. If you're busy, you're going to order a lot of work. If you're not busy, you're not going to order a lot. So versus having somebody that you're paying a salary for, let's say you're slow, but you have all these technicians that are just sitting around not doing much, you're actually wasting a lot of money. So having the ability to scale that workflow with the outsourcer can give you that financial benefit. And then real estate and plant cost, that's a given. So if you make everything in-house, you're going to need more space. If you need more space, you'll pay more in maintenance costs and real estate taxes, and obviously operating costs, because now everything has to be produced in-house. So these are some of the considerations that are important, and that we always mention to lab owners here when they work with Aurora, that they really need to consider what works for them. This is that chart I mentioned to you, where we kind of break down what it costs to manufacture a single zirconia crown. This is a very interesting chart. It took us a while to, bring everything together, make sure all the costs are correct, and then let's go through the list. So we have the first cost is the labor wages. That's your biggest expense. So what it costs to, scan, design, and produce that zirconia crown in terms of labor at $19 an hour. How many units can that particular operator do at a specific interval? It ends up being $7.53. We're going to break down that $7.53 on the next slide to see what actually goes into that. Then we have the overhead costs. We have indirect labor costs. So you have your rent, utilities, space, licenses, fees for repairs. Then you have employees' salaries, their benefits, 401ks, health insurance, everything that goes into having an employee on hand. That's an important cost. Basically, these 2 costs are the major costs that just, you have to consider. Then you have depreciation costs. That one's interesting because a lot of labs actually don't think about it. When they just want to buy a new piece of machinery, start milling it, and that's it, I'm set. Whereas in reality, you have to consider depreciation costs. That's really the value of your machine as it depreciates over time. So every year, the value of your new piece of machinery goes down. That's actually a tax deductible item, so that hopefully if the lab is managing their money well, they can use that tax deduction to accumulate every year over, let's say, a period of 4 to 5 years, and then have that extra savings to maybe purchase a new piece of equipment. This is what we do at our manufacturing center. So all the machinery that's done is actually depreciation cost is taken into account immediately. And this is why it's also a good option for you. As you outsource, you don't have to worry about buying the latest and the greatest every couple of years, because the outsourcer is more likely going to do that for you. And then here we use the Zerlock 16 disc, a very popular option that we have. And it ends up being $2.30 per unit, the total material cost. Then we have packaging, freight, bubble wrap, all your boxes and everything. So it ends up being $27.19. So if we sell it for $37, so we're looking at net margin of 58%. So making about $10 profit. So that's usually how that goes. Now, if we jump back to the labor, direct labor wages, so that's $7.53 I mentioned in the beginning. These are all the additional steps you have to consider, all the additional costs that are hidden during the production of that single unit. So you have to pay somebody to scan the model, design the crown. Somebody needs to set up the disc, nest it, run a milling strategy. Then you have to do quality control after it comes out of the mill. Then you have to do, cut it away from the milling disc carefully. You have to make sure it gets sintered. Each of these steps, you have to have a separate operator, or in the case of smaller labs, one operator that does all these different steps. And then you have your final finishing after sintering. Could be stain and glaze, could be just polish, could be just sandblasting. And then you have obviously your packaging and shipping. So that's where that $7.53 comes from. And then we have expanding digital data restoration offerings. So we talked about the ROI, we talked about the labor challenges, and then we got to talk about what are these products that you're maybe not offering that your dentist might be interested in. And so these are the clear aligners. These are the flexible partial frameworks. These are your surgical guides, a great tool to bring in additional revenue through provisionals and the final restorations. Then you have your 3D models, your 3D Lucitone 3D printed dentures, and you have your full arch screw retain PMMAs. In case of clear aligners, for example, what you must consider is designing a clear aligner is just one part of the step. After the design is done, you create these aligner models that all have to be 3D printed. And there's usually, it could be 20, 30, 40 of them, sets of models that need to be 3D printed because they need to go onto the vacuum form to produce each one of the aligner trays. And then, so that's 3D printing cost, that's design cost, that's material cost. So there's a lot of steps just to create those aligners. But if you outsource, you'll be able to have that fixed cost from the manufacturer that you'll be able to build your profit into and sell it to your dentist. So now your dentist has you as a clear aligner lab as well. And this has been a huge growth. There's been huge demand for clear aligners, and a lot of labs have been growing or increasing their revenue, staying relevant in the market by offering that product. Flexible RPDs also became a great solution for people who don't want to use cast frameworks. It is also a very economic solution. And designing an RPD also takes a separate design module. You need to have a skilled designer who knows partial dentures, who knows surveying, who knows undercuts. And so design centers and milling centers have very specialized technicians. That's all they do all day. So you'll have a very good chance of scaling, if this is what you just introduced into your business, of scaling, dozens or maybe hundreds of these partial frameworks as your new product offering. Surgical guide, that's my favorite. That's my specialty. I loved selling surgical guides to the dentist, not mainly for like profit. You can make some profit out of surgical guides, but it's a great tool to plan out the case and give it to the dentist so you can show him what the case can look like from beginning, from the planning stage through provisionalization all the way to the end. And it's been a great selling tool. it's a problem solving tool that you take this complex case and through a surgical guide, you basically take it to the end and you've solved it for the dentist. And the only thing that stays in between the dentist obviously goes for the provisional and for the final, especially if you've done all the hard work ahead of time. So offering that to an outsourcing center and especially a design center is very important. But it requires very specialized knowledge. Technicians need to know how to read X-rays, mandibular nerves, sinus cavities. They need to know about bone recession, bone density. So, that's a very specialized field, and most outsourcing centers have those specialized technicians there. Most of them are also trained by oral surgeons, or they work together with oral surgeons to provide the best possible solution. And they can vary. They can have anchor pains. They can just be a single tooth surgical guide. They can be a bone reduction guide with provisionalization at the same time. It can be a wide variety of things, but it's a great tool for you to consider to maybe jump into that all-on full contour screw retained zirconia hybrids that maybe you wanted to get into, but you couldn't because you couldn't find the skilled technicians to really jump into it. 3D models, that's a given. Everybody's 3D printing. We at Aurora utilize our carbon printers. They're extremely fast, extremely accurate, and we found them actually to be more accurate than some of the Improgum impressions, some of the silicone-based impressions, simply because there's no expansion with the stone, with plaster when you pour it. So we found them to be very accurate. And then we have Lucitone dentures, which have proved to be extremely strong, extremely durable, and combined with Dentsply's IPN 3D library of teeth, they've proved to be extremely successful. It's also one of the few materials that you can reline. So having that, working with a dentist that's working with more traditional denture workflow is a great option to implement that into that workflow as well. And what we've seen is a lot of crown and bridge labs are jumping into dentures, and a lot of denture labs are jumping into crown and bridge. So there's this big merger going on in the industry, which is a good time for everyone because that cross training is really important for all of us. And pardon me, here we have some examples, of other products that you can offer, like bite splints, like we said, surgical guides. Smile designs is a big one, where you can do, digital diagnostic wax ups. It saves you a ton of time versus having it done by hand. It can be done digitally and then 3D printed as part of a model. So it's a more economic solution. So you'll be able to sell a cheaper diagnostic guide to the dentist with all the benefits of improved aesthetics. And it's a much quicker execution of the product versus just waxing it, trimming the model, then waxing it, and then shipping it to the dentist. So a very good solution. And of course, doing smile designs, having maybe a design service that can do smile designs for you. That's also used as a great tool to get patients excited about their final restorations. It's sort of like a virtual preview of what they could look like. That data can eventually be carried over into your design software. And we also have, custom trays, digital dentures we mentioned, custom abutments, full arch zirconia hybrids, screw-retained bridges, and RPD frameworks. So these are kind of the things that if you're a lab and you're not offering some of these, you seriously should consider jumping into either one of these product lines. Digital dentures especially are very attractive, but they also require a lot of design time and knowledge. So finding a digital technician who doesn't have denture experience is more likely. Finding one that has, who's been a denture technician for years and now doing it digital is less likely. But your outsourcing a design center is most likely going to have one that kind of has both of those attributes merged into one human being, right? Which is what we would really need in the industry. We have huge transition now happening between, the industry veterans and the new upcoming generation of technicians. So most industry veterans are going to be retiring. So we really want to learn as much from them as possible. So that's been one of the main challenges that we see. And if you're in that transition, when some of your older technicians are leaving and the new technicians are coming in, having an outsourcing option will be a key tool for you to be able to manage that transition till everybody gets up to speed. And so to summarize, everything we've talked about, you need to know your true cost. So I suggest knowing what it really costs, put in those numbers in those charts and know what it really costs for you to make your restorations in-house. Then assess what's your labor availability. Do I have enough technicians to grow? Do I want to grow? And if I do want to grow, how many do I need? And then analyze what you're currently offering to your dentists and whether or not they're interested in any of the new offerings. And if any of these are implemented correctly, it will generate a new opportunity for you, because that's basically the key, especially during these interesting times that we live in. Labs staying relevant and maintaining revenue and maintaining their employees and customers has been really important. So looking for that new opportunity that's going to let you stay afloat or even grow is really important. And that's basically all I had to say. If you have any questions, I will gladly answer them. If you've had any, experiences with you utilizing some of the outsourcing, let us know what those experiences were. If there were successful implementations, unsuccessful, why were they unsuccessful? We would really like to hear. We hear from other lab owners all the time here. I get on the phone with them a lot, so they tell me a lot about what their troubles are. And so we really try to, fine tune and fight those problems that are causing those little things that are causing problems for the labs. So thank you, and hopefully we have some questions. And if not, you can always follow up and ask us more.
Thanks, Milos. We have a question regarding quality control and maybe scan validation when scans are being sent over and being outsourced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so scan validation is probably one of the more important things when incoming cases. What happens is we usually have a team of people who we had to train on the clinical and morphological aspects, but then also on the technical aspect of managing digital files. Most of the problems that we see are incorrect digital bytes, because a lot of dentists are now relying a little too much on the digital technology. They're having their assistants do it, or maybe the assistant does it better than a dentist, and dentist doesn't know how to do it. There's a lot of fluctuation there, but basically we're seeing fluctuation in occlusal alignment. We're seeing a lot of inconsistencies when it comes to data integrity. We see a lot of gaps. That this is scanner dependent. So usually something that's coming from a 3 shape or an iTero tends to be a much higher quality. However, other scanners are catching up. Carestream and Medit, for example, are catching up, are getting there. Hopefully less and less scanners today require spraying to be able to reflect some of that image back. And so mostly what we see is, like I said, that inconsistencies with bytes, data gaps, or little patches of missing data. And our biggest gripe has been the fact that a lot of people who do intraoral scanning no longer pack cords. Cord packing is still very important. It allows for the designer to really see the shape of the margin, the shape of the prep. Some preps fluctuate. They go from chamfer onto the bevel, onto the knife edge. And so if the cord is not packed, the only thing we can rely on is the color image of the data, where we can see the white and the pink kind of merging together. However, that PLY color data is not extremely accurate. So if we see that there's a lot of that, we tend to reject that or request for a new scan. Having the ability for like a design center to validate that while the patient is there is very useful. This new feature now that Henry Schein's Prosthetic Services offers actually allows for the scan data to be validated while the patient is still there, so that you don't have to reschedule the patient for that new data. So that's been something that we're going to be trying out more and more to see if that's going to actually help us reduce some of this back and forth. Because the only option that you have if the patient doesn't want to be rescheduled is a wild guess, and you don't want to do that with marginal integrity. And one more thing I will say, the scan body data that comes in needs to be much clearer. And we always end up hunting down information that relates to the type of the implant that's underneath, the size of the implant, the platform. So these are kind of the things that we look at, and it's a first firewall. Pardon me, it's a first firewall of defense of you accepting hundreds and hundreds of cases daily from customers, because anything can come in and anything does come in. So that's all I can say about that.
Perfect. And is there any type of assistance in real time if the scan isn't accurate?
So, like I said, if this new service that Shine's offering is interesting, that they will allow to kind of indicate where the data is missing, where the data is incorrect. Unfortunately, if the data has been completely distorted while the patient is there, the dentist simply has to do a rescan. There's the only thing you're really relying on at that point is the algorithm, the artificial intelligence that processes the data. But certain techniques can be implemented during scanning protocol that really minimize that down to nothing. We have certain offices that send us scans that look so pristine, but they've also received extensive training. So if you as a lab want to go and get training on Trios or iTero or whatever it is that your dentist uses, this is what we used to do. This is what some labs do. We see as well. The technician goes and gets trained on the intraoral scan system, and then goes and assists the dentist for, a few weeks till they really get a hang of it. And it makes everyone's life easier. It ultimately saves the technician a lot of time and money because of all the potential remakes that could be happening by, not utilizing that training.
Thanks so much, Milos.
Yeah.
So if anyone has any questions that they've asked that have not yet been addressed, we will have a Zahn representative get back to you to respond to your questions. You can also, if you have time and would like to view our full webinar that Milos was referring to earlier, you can find that on the Zahn YouTube page. It was an event that occurred January 14th. If you want to go ahead and indicate that in the search and take a look. Milos, we thank you so much for your time this morning and information. And thank you all for joining our Quick Bite. Have a great day.
Thank you all. Bye-bye. We'll see you soon.